Hi, Miss Tammy.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
I'm so glad to be here.
Can't wait to have this conversation with you. So this is our Mind Blowing Magazine Holiday Anniversary Edition special conversation that we're having, and you are our cover talent, and we're just so stoked to have you.
I'm so honored, literally.
I know that most people are more readily familiar with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
He's a well-known gospel artist.
What's his name?
You can tell the world. However, we want to know who you are, his better half.
Wow, thank you.
Yes, so Tammy Franklin, this is our opportunity to hear about your faith, your family, all things fashion, fun, fitness, just who you are.
That's all of the above, everything you named.
I love it. We also would love to just say that we are a source that we just want to give people this authentic heart of who God is. So if there's any point in this conversation that we're having that the Lord just like ministers and speaks to you and you want to share your heart, please authentically do that.
Thank
so
you.
Just
yes.
You have the floor. I'm going to ask you, we're going to jump right on in. Will you go ahead and give us a brief overview of your life, some of the trials and pain you have overcome that helped you shape you into the woman that you are today?
Well, I was born and raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Mm-hmm. I am the oldest of 7.
Wow.
And being the oldest just naturally gave me, I believe, this passion to lead, not only to lead, but to protect and encourage, because that's what I was naturally as the oldest child. I also realized when I had children, and needed some assistance with them and had a hard time asking for help. I said, Mom, how did you do it with 7 of us? And she said, girl, you were my nanny.
Wow.
You were my help. And so it's just interesting to me how God prepares you for life and what you're ultimately going to be doing. A turning point in my life, I was a church girl, raised in a church, pew baby. My granddaddy was a pastor. And I was very heavily involved in church, children's choir. I was one of the, elected people to represent the choir, very involved in school. And I became pregnant shortly after graduation. And my daddy was a deacon.
Okay.
My mama a deaconess.
Okay.
In the Black Baptist Church.
Oh, Lord.
Girl, it was literally National Enquirer.
Right.
And it's a very, very difficult and dark time for me, more so just from the judgment. The people that should have just put their arms around me and surrounded me were not doing that. And these were ladies in the church. I would have people that would come up to me and say, how could you have done this to your parents? Shame on you. Oof. And, at 19 going on 20 years old, shame on, I felt a lot of shame that was literally hovering over me. And so went through a really dark time. I really felt that I was supposed to have my baby and not only have her, but be the mom to her. Now, I have no idea where I guess that courage came from, because everybody around me was telling me something completely different. Oh, really? I had doctors who said, there are options, right? You don't have to do this.
Whoa.
Yeah, just would tell me that. No. I had a family member who will remain nameless, pick me up from the airport, and I know it was out of love, with $300 cash, and he was like, hey, we can take care of this. And he said, we can go that way. He said, and he had like a little ring for me. He said, or you can put this on. He says, because he didn't want me to feel shame. Because I looked really young. Okay. Like I looked maybe probably 12. Oh, okay. And so even as I began to show, I would hear people say, oh my God, who did that to that poor child? So I looked so young. Okay. And so for this family member, it was his way of wanting to protect me. So all of the people, with the exception of my parents, they were immediately saying, hey, you can do this. We're behind you. My mother had me at 17, so there was a different path that she wanted for me. So it was really, really hard for her. But the shame, the guilt that I placed on myself, took me in a place of depression. And so there was a concern for me, and we thought of possibly me staying at a home for girls. And went to tour and the place, and girls there would either keep their babies or put them up for adoption.
Okay.
And they interview you, ask you lots of different questions. It was evident that they thought I was pretty, because that was mentioned quite a bit. And so as they began to kind of court me, I would say, away from my parents, and got more background about my daughter's biological father and things like that, they would literally call me in my dorm room and just say, hey, we're checking on you. We hope you're doing well. So my plan was to finish out the semester and then maybe go and stay there. And as they began to call me, the calls began to change. Okay. And it was like, hey, this baby's going to be beautiful. Oh. And, people love pretty babies. And this baby would adopt so easily. Oh. So I had the stress of the church, had some friends that, didn't necessarily want to be my friend anymore. Yeah. And then I had these people calling me. Literally, I was like, they're going to try to take my baby.
Oh, that's scary.
Oh, so I called my mom and I said, Mom, we can't go here because they're going to try to talk me into, giving her away. And I literally, not that they said it, but it created a sense of anxiety that I literally thought they were going to try to take her.
Take the baby.
Yeah. And so, but God is amazing. Yes. And I had a beautiful baby girl. I named her Carrington Elizabeth.
Oh, beautiful.
And she grew my faith.
Wow. Like
never before. This little ball of sunshine literally grew me up and taught me. I call her my walking, talking billboard of faith. Wow. Because it really was, it deepened my faith in God. And I would say brought me into a deeper relationship. Like I loved God and had, I was a pew baby, as I mentioned already, and faith was always important to me, but there was no way I could do it on my own, in my own strength. Even though I had the support of my parents, I knew, because I knew nothing about being a mom, but there were just little, I would call them just enlightening moments from God.
Ooh, I like that.
Before I even had her, he just started would whisper little things to me about the importance of me bringing her into the world and how it was going to be me alongside him, in cooperation with the Holy Spirit, imparting into her, from giving birth to, walking with her through life. And I was like, that was nothing but the Holy Spirit, because at now 20 years old, I had no experience. Right. But just, it was, I know for a fact it was God given. And he's given me those same types of enlightenments throughout the years with all of my children.
Wow. How many children do you have?
I have 4 collectively, but I've had 3 that I've had physically.
Wow. How old are they?
Oh my gosh, this is so crazy to say. Our children range from 33, 32, 24, and now 21. Our youngest son just turned 21. Jesus, cannot believe it. Wow. And we're empty nesters, and so now I am Lovey to beautiful Shiloh.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah. How did you and your husband meet?
Oh, girl, it's such. Let me see. Let me try to.
Okay, I got you. Condense
it a little bit. Kirk and I first met when shortly after graduating high school.
Oh.
And it's called Hurricane Harbor in Arlington, Texas now. It used to be called Wet and Wild. And when we tell the story, we have to say, okay, it wasn't a strip club. Okay, it was a water amusement park. And so we met there. At the time, I was there with some girlfriends and the guy that I was seeing, who actually is Carrington's biological father. He was there with some friends, I was there with some friends, and we kind of got into a little bit of a spat. And so, and this was during a time where like the local radio station would have like these summer jams. So it was like, you know, end of school summer jam.
Okay.
Shanice Wilson was like, you know, that's when I love that smile, you know, was out. And, you know, so everybody was there. And girl, I was cute.
Yes.
Had my hair pulled back and a little Sade bun, red lips. And so me and, you know, oh boy, got into it. And so it was getting ready to end. I walk outside the entrance to the amusement park, and I have a towel wrapped around me. Okay. And I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for it to all end. And these two guys come up to me and yank the towel off of me and start, you know, kind of horse playing. Okay. Then this other guy comes with fully clothed in cross colors, and I'm like, who is this? And so he grabs the towel, gives it back to me, and he starts, you know, kind of chastising, you know, the guys. And so I guess he was doing a little too much, because one of the guys said, "You're the one that told us to take it from her because you wanted to meet her." Lo and behold, Kirk Franklin. And so that's how I met my husband. And it was what I think about just God's timing. Because I'm gonna tell you, initially I was like, oh, okay, oh boy, on the inside gonna come out and get jealous. So I was like, you stand right here. And we just, you know, just talking and, you know, and then I asked him, where are you coming from? We all have on swimsuits and you're fully dressed. Right. And he said, I'm a minister of music. I'm coming from choir rehearsal. It was like, wait, okay, you know, because I was a church girl, and the fact that he was so honest was really attractive to me. I mean, I already thought he was cute, but I was like, okay, well, let's go over here. You know, so we talked, and he talked about wanting to do, you know, music and infuse all these different genres that he loves, and, you know, from classical to reggae. And I was just like, okay, you go to church, you got a plan, and you're telling the truth. Wow. It just was really mind-blowing to me. I don't think at that point in my life I met someone my age that just had like this whole vision planned out. And so I was like, wow. So we exchanged numbers, and girl, I'm telling you, I'm trying to condense it. And literally, I thought he never called me. He got my sister. And so, you know, we all kind of have that relative that, you know, she ain't here. Oh, no. Click. Oh, no. So fast forward 3 years later. And I'm now in the girl group, and we're getting ready to move to Minnesota. And my girlfriend was like, you got to meet this guy. Her boyfriend at the time was working on this guy's demo. Okay, yes. And she was like, you gotta come to the recording. You gotta come to the live recording. You have to meet him. He's short like you, and, you know, all this. And I was like, okay, sure. She was like, will you come? I was like, absolutely, I'll come. So I'm sitting there. And I'm sure she said his name, but I promise you it did not register, because this was 3 years later. Wow. He jumps out on the stage, and I'm like, is his name Kirk? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I met him. And the biggest thing for me was he's doing it. He's doing exactly what he said that he was gonna do.
I love that.
And girl, so the recording ends. She asked me, did I want to come backstage? I was, you know, and I was, you know, a little respectful church girl. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm okay. And she said, can I give him your number? I said, sure. And when he was up there, little church boy self up there, he was, you know, looking like, who is that? And I couldn't tell if he remembered me or if he just thought that I was cute. And so when we talked that night, he didn't remember me. He was like, you know, so I saw you in the audience, and like, yeah. I said, do you don't remember me, do you? And he was like, and I said, a name, you know, the water amusement park. I said, Wet n Wild. And he was like, no. Oh my! And so in that moment, 3 years later, he thinks I blew him off.
Oh my gosh!
And I think he never called. And we just died laughing and just talked for hours.
Wow.
For hours. So I move away. So that's a whole another 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you were going to Minnesota.
I went to Minnesota.
So you didn't connect to...
We started dating. As a matter of fact, before I even left, we saw each other literally almost every day. And even when I left, we tried to continue to date. Right. But, he was we both were essentially starving artists, and we couldn't really see each other very much because of that. And my parents had moved to a whole nother state, so there was really no need for me to come back to Texas.
So what brought you to Texas then? Because y'all here, or you're in Texas.
Yes.
So what brought you to the marriage then? How did that happen?
Girl, you sure you want me to continue?
Share your heart.
Well, 3 years passed, and within those years, there was a time when we really tried to date. Then we had moments of, it was hard because our feelings for each other was like the elephant in the room.
Okay.
And so we would, the tension began to build.
Yes.
And so, but and Kirk would call me. We got to a point to where we really just became really good friends. But our feelings for each other were still there. But it was like, you live in Minnesota, I live in Texas. This is if it's going to be, it's not right now.
Gotcha.
So, I started seeing someone, he started seeing someone. And he decided, and he had a difficult time with, he wanted to really live out his faith. And so he would call me just crying, Lord, I done sinned and I just want to live right. He gonna kill me to tell you the story. So he would call me coming from, someone's house in the wee hours of the morning, doing what wee hours of the morning people do. But he couldn't stand it. Or he would call me if he was seeing someone that didn't quite understand his calling or his, and I was like, Kirk, you have to be with somebody that understands the calling on your life. Like he was seeing someone that didn't understand that he needed to maybe stay and talk to people, or she didn't understand the process of the studio. And so, but it's funny because God, again, starts equipping you very soon for what your life's going to be. Because I've been in the studio, I know what it takes when he's in the studio now. So here I am advising my friend, not knowing that the girl that I'm talking about is me.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
Just goosebumps. And so I would tell him, you need someone that's going to understand the call on your life and who understands the process of the studio. The studio takes time and blah, 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 And so one day he decides he's going to make this girl the one. And that didn't set well with me. But I was, I'm his friend, trying to be supportive. And so he had this whole night planned for her. And I was literally dying inside. I was like, but I couldn't quite, I was like, okay, am I just jealous? What is it that I'm feeling? And so he decides that, this is the one, and he's got flowers and dinner and all this planned. And so Kirk would call me, I would call him the vampire, because he would call me like 2, 3 in the morning, because that's kind of when musicians are, And so he called me, and he was like, we went to dinner, and I'm listening on the other end, just like, wow, great. I'm so happy for you. Yay, yay. And then he finally says, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't commit. Wow. And I was like, really? Why? He said, because I cannot stop thinking about what we're supposed to be. And I was like, oh. I said, well, I kind of feel the same way. He was like, why would you weren't going to say anything? And I said, I just want you to be happy. And he was like, I really, really want to see. Can we not let the distance, come between us, and let's just see what's here. I was like, okay.
So it seems like very early on then in y'all's marriage, then he must have been touring, because if he had just started with his career when you first...
He was right at the very beginning.
Wow.
Of Why We Sing had come out, and it was slowly starting to make, having airplay and really in crossing over. Okay. And so, we...
Was that difficult then? Because then you were separated, you were married, but then he's touring. You have Carrington, right? You said there had to be some difficulties there. It was,
being
but married but single parenting.
Yes. Well, yeah. I think a lot of married women would say they feel like single mothers quite often. Most definitely. We were fortunate enough to where we had some pretty decent premarital counseling, which y'all please do premarital counseling.
I was gonna ask, like, what's your advice?
So important
in this season.
So it was advised that that I not work at least conventionally for the first year, and because it was also his desire that we not spend not any more than 2 weeks apart. And so, and I realized not everybody necessarily has the means to do that, but we really sacrificed to make sure that that I wasn't away from him for more than 2 weeks. And so that helped some. But as the kids got older, that was difficult, because now they're in, activities and school and friends and things like that. And so it definitely began to be at times a lot of pressure on us. And when you're apart, when you come back together, you're wanting two different things. So I'm needing adult conversation because I'm primarily with the kids, and he's wanting sex kitten. so it's like, I ain't feeling none of this. I want to talk. And so, we've had to learn each other's rhythms. And the first probably good 5 years of our marriage was this back and forth on the road. And we really kind of lived like, I would say, like roommates, of like boyfriend and girlfriend. And so the real part of our marriage did not start until, although we were definitely married, until 5 years in. And then when we were about 5 years married, we hit.
Really?
Because all of a sudden he was at home. Like consistently at home.
How did you handle that?
I remember we had gotten to a place where I wasn't really feeling him at all. And I remembered my dad's advice when I first got married, and that was to remember that love was a fact and not a feeling. And it did not make any sense to me at the time. I was like, Daddy, yes. He said, no. There are feelings that come with love, but love is a fact. You choose. You chose to say, I love him. I was like, okay. So now 5 years later, I'm living that, because in that moment I had to choose to remember I love him, even though right now I don't feel it. Like I'm not feeling you at all. And we were at a dinner, and we had become those two people that you see in restaurants that are not speaking. It's like you're sitting there, and we've always said, we don't ever want to be those people, and we had become those people. And so we were committed to counseling, and we went to counseling on and off for 4 years. It wasn't a consistent 4 years, but we had a 4 year where we were really, really fighting for us. And I tell so many people that I'm 51 years old. Got married. I know.
Hey,
no.
Now, come on.
And shame on me if I am the same person that I was at 25 when I got married. That means I'm stagnant and I'm not growing. Oof. And so many people say, are you here? I'm a different person. They're a different person. And I'm like, and you know what? You're right.
You should be.
But the choice that we've made is to continue to grow and change together. I am completely different than what I was when we first got married. And so is my husband. But we have made the intentional choice is to grow and change together. And so even now, we've been married 25 years. It'll be actually 26 in January. So I guess technically 25 and a half. And but every anniversary, we make an evaluation of where we've been and where we're going and how am I doing? What could you do different? And what do you need more of? What are we most proud of ourselves of, too? Because a lot of times, too, you just come together and you just nitpick, and it's like, but what are we proud about?
That's good.
What have we accomplished that we're really, really proud about? And we get with people that we admire, whether it be my parents or just a couple that we, really admire, and just ask, how did you do this? And again, we're just big advocates of counseling. We both collectively and individually. Even in this pandemic, girl, we've had 2 sessions, one in person. And as well as, one, there's no excuse, because now counselors are doing virtual counseling. But, we both have completely different personalities. We have never, ever been here before in our lives, as the entire world has completely shifted. And we both handled it different. For me, I'm like, I like being at home anyway.
Yeah.
I'm good. Where my husband was bouncing off the walls. Or, I'm more, I'm a rule follower. So I'm gonna be masked up, and just and he's free spirited, and and so there we started getting under each other, each other's skin. But it's like someone was so surprised that at 25 years, I'm like, yes, there's not a point ever in marriage that you stop working.
Wow, that's good advice.
Not ever.
That's good.
Because if you are, that means you're just living together as roommates and you're not growing. You should always be growing.
You're right. I love that. What would you say? That's really great advice across the board, at married, single, whatever, but specifically because you had the waiting period, what would you speak to those in their singlehood and their waiting? What insight and advice would you give them as they're waiting for the one?
First and foremost, I would say that society makes the end goal for women marriage. That's, like that's the big prize.
Yeah.
And marriage is amazing. And to desire it is an amazing thing. But I think to be completely just focused that, that's my end goal, to be married. No. Focus and work on yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with community so that when it is time, you've been working on yourself. And especially I think a lot of times within Christian culture, we can be, there's a weird phase that comes into it because she knows she wants to get married.
Right.
So they're on the date.
Right.
And she's like, so, where do you see yourself like in a year? And it's like, girl, you weird. Just be.
Right.
Just be. And he that finds a wife finds a good thing. Now that doesn't mean to be you're just sitting around. I'm just waiting. But it does mean that you don't have to be desperate. You don't have to be, basically clamoring and not walking in your self-worth. Just plan, make sure that you are worthy of being that good thing that God says you are. But that he won't complete you. You're already complete. So when he comes into your life, y'all are just two whole people, not perfect,
right?
But at least the more baggage, and we all have them, lots of suitcases that we're rolling around with.
Yeah.
But take the time to work on those things that needs to strengthen, because all that's going to do is come with you.
That's true.
And quite frankly, marriage magnifies.
Yeah.
It truly magnifies the trauma and the unhealed trauma within you.
Goes back to the whole needing the therapy.
Yes.
As women, we are able to handle and hold a plethora of things.
Yes, we are great multitaskers, right?
We are. And as moms, that comes into play even more. And it's like a never-ending, all the way around the clock opportunity and experience to parent. So did you find yourself ever like losing your identity when you were raising your children?
Absolutely.
And how did you overcome that?
Absolutely. And I haven't met a mother that doesn't feel that way. In fact, as we empty nested, I remember it hit me as we were driving back from bringing Kennedy to school. That's our baby girl.
Okay.
Which meant we had one more at home.
Okay.
And that's when it hit me that my role was shifting. And I was overcome with fear because I literally, in that moment, was asking, who am I beyond my husband and my kids? And my dreams, my desires were really attached to theirs.
Right.
Because we're like the biggest cheerleaders, right? So it's like, oh, you want to do this? Come on, I'm gonna help you. Whether it's your husband, your children, and I believe that we must learn to do that and be that for ourselves, and figure out the balance, that delicate balance of not forgetting about yourself. But also too, and I say the delicate balance, you also too have to surrender to the season that you're in. So I've met some women that they're not even acting like a mama. They're missing games in this because they're off trying to be, the new thing is, I'm a bad boss.
Yes.
There's another B word that they're adding to that, but this is a
Yes, it
faith-based
is.
thing, and that's good too. But it's like, but your babies,
They need you.
they need you, and they're raising themselves. And so, how do you balance this? How can you still fulfill your dreams, but yet surrender to the season? If the season doesn't, I guess the word I would use, if it doesn't accompany what you're trying, then it's like, it's not that you can't do it.
It's just not the season.
It's just not the season, because they ain't asked to be here.
It's true.
And so the season may have to come a year later, or 2 years later, or I'm preparing for the season, because maybe the season's going to be entrepreneurship. Well, that costs money.
Right.
So maybe while you are preparing for when it's that season, start preparing financially, saving. But the season also is calling for you to be closer to home, because the kids are so young.
Right.
So, or, the ultimate goal is to do something that would require your kids. They need to be self-sufficient anyway. So, just start planning for that. How do I need to make sure that, little Chloe, I'm just using a little fantasy name here, is prepared for when I do this. Because right now she would fall apart if I wasn't readily available. And so I remember when I announced to my children that I wasn't going to be their personal concierge.
How did that go?
Oh, it didn't matter, because it needed to be said.
Yeah.
But it was me taking a look at the habits that I needed to change in myself. And because mamas, we will fuss and,
Yes.
oh, they get on my nerves. But no, I had to look at myself and say, Tammy, sis, you have allowed their poor planning to be your emergency over and over and over again. And so now you've created this atmosphere of, oh, mama do it, because she always does. She always does. And so I would say, in that, just that delicate balance of getting them ready, because they need to be ready for life anyway,
Right.
but also with the end goal of getting them ready for what you ultimately want to do, to make sure that they are capable.
That's good. Wow. Thank you. You actually helped me surrender to the season.
Yeah, we have to,
love
or
that.
you'll be frustrated.
Yeah.
You
How did
will-
you stay encouraged?
You will live so frustrated. Ooh, there were times I had to call my mama. Other ladies that I admire, but also too recognizing that I have several callings, and my main calling in that season was mama, or wife, or support, or whatever that is for that particular woman. Because I know that there's single women also, and maybe that season is singleness. Whether from divorce or you just hadn't gotten married yet. But surrendering to the season and trusting God in the process.
And like you said, recognizing that you can have more than one calling.
Yes, you can.
We lock ourselves into thinking we can only do the one
Or,
thing.
or that it has to be this way. Has to be this way. And my baby sister, who I am she's the youngest, and I would say probably the most, oh my God, she's a go-getter. I think Celeste has a couple of masters. She, and so she has it fixated in her head that it has to be in this time, in this way. And I'm like, but you got a 5 and a 7-year-old, and a high schooler. So something's gotta, So I said to her, how about wait until he's driving? She's like, that's a good idea. I'm like, yeah, because you still shuffling them around. So how about we start transitioning? So it's really planning. And I think as moms, what we end up doing is we just take it all on, and but we look at it as it has to meet this goal this time. So if the goal is this time next year I have to be doing this, then we will not necessarily surrender. Well, what's the season calling for? If the season is not matching what you're trying to do, you're going to be so frustrated.
Yeah. Whew, that's good. I appreciate that. Your foundation of faith is very evident. It's strong. It is encouraging.
Thank you.
And I know that you've had some challenges to help you to dig deep and to have that foundation of faith. How would you encourage someone who doesn't have a foundation of faith? How would you how would you introduce faith? How would you share that? How could you encourage someone who's going through and they don't have that realness, with God? How would you help them? What could you say to speak to their soul right now?
The first thing I would do is just say that he's real, and he desires to know and have a deeper relationship. I think that a lot of times as believers, we make it so hard, and it's just really not that complicated at all. And I would just start there, and to talk about his love. We make it all these rules and this and this and that, and it's like, no. I mean, even the word says they will know us by our love, and we are not always loving.
That's true.
And so oftentimes we are the living, walking word ourselves without even so much as verbalizing anything. But they didn't see Jesus in us whatsoever because we were so ugly and judgmental. And I would just say you have to build, it starts with building relationship. And there's no way that you can even introduce anyone to a loving, faithful, conditionally loving God. And you yourself are not. It is not modeled whatsoever. And there are a lot of people that didn't necessarily grow up in church.
Right.
And so if they come across us as believers, and we're literally the first person maybe that they're getting introduced to, but we mean,
and they're not going.
They're not going to get it at all. And then to someone that maybe has fallen away, there's nothing ever too deep that you cannot come back. Nothing. And when I say nothing, nothing. Not one single thing. God doesn't want us all clean and perfect. And then what is he for?
Ooh,
what did he send his son for?
Ooh,
if we're waiting for the moment that we're just, and I hear that all the time. Oh, I'm gonna get to church when I get right. No. God wants you just like that. And then all that foolishness that's there, he can even use some of that. Like, let's say maybe you're a radical person and, outspoken in this and in that, but surrendered to God, he's not going to quench all of that. He'll use it.
Yes, he will.
And now you're that for him.
Wow. I love that. So good. Okay, you're an empty nester. You rock with God.
Woo woo.
Yes. But you love fashion.
I do.
You have a fitness situation happening.
I do.
Share this new season that you're in with your life.
It's really, really interesting, and it's so much like God to allow me to walk into things that I just naturally love. About almost 3-4 years ago, as I began the empty nest transition. I had people calling me to do a book, and so I was like, okay, well maybe that's what I do. And so I was meeting with my daughter. Carrington owns her own branding company, so I was meeting with her, and we were just talking about social media and branding and blah 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 blah. And I had some not majorly health things come up, but my hormones started acting crazy. Let's just put it that way. And to the point where I was really struggling to, as my hormones began to just kind of fluctuate, I began to have really fogginess of thought.
Okay.
To the point where I needed to step back. I was afraid to speak. When I say speak, not just like this, but like to go and speak for an engagement. Okay. Just because my thoughts were not coming together, or I could be sitting and talking to someone, and how you can be talking and you can have several thoughts of what the conversation is, but you can at least pull the appropriate thought and vocalize that. Girl,
wasn't happening.
Wasn't happening. Like what I wanted to say, I'd be like, ooh, no, can't say that. And so it made me scared. And so I took a kind of a step back, but I'm so glad, because there were things that we were talking about possibly that now I'm like, I don't want to do that. But I would have possibly done something that I really wasn't quite ready for because of the pressure of what's next.
Right.
Of what are you doing next? And I remember a friend of mine compliment, and she said, how cool is it that you are taking the time to just figure it out? You're not succumbing to pressure. And, and I hadn't thought of it that way necessarily, but it was really a God ordained moment. And so now it's just kind of organically happening.
I love that.
And it's things I love. I love fashion. I love faith. I love fitness. And I love the fact that they all start with F.
Yes.
We're Franklin.
You're Franklin.
And so it's just organically happening. And I just think it's just like God.
Yeah.
Isn't it so dope of him just to, when we stop striving and just on that hamster wheel,
Right.
what's next? What's next? And we just take a step back, whether we do it ourselves or he does it for us. And in that instance, he did it for me, and I saw the benefit of it.
Yeah.
So I surrendered to okay,
I
let me
love
just
it.
wait and see. And
That's
it just,
so cool.
now I'm doing this.
Now you're doing this, and
Yeah.
it's been so fun.
4'11" and a half, and I's a model.
Come on now.
Not a real one, but
Well, Tammy, it's been awesome getting to know you and hearing your story and your heart. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you.
on behalf of Mind Blowing Magazine. And I just can't wait to see what else the Lord is doing in and
Thank
through you. You just are such a great inspiration and role model to women out there. And so I'm just honored to have had this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
To have a conversation with you. It's
Thank
been a
you.
great delight. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you.